I am so excited to have you on She Achieved today.
She achieved. I love.
She achieved. So interestingly, when I was looking for the name, it's
Right.
such a broad thing and difficult thing to like encapsulate everything. But I think achieving things looks so differently for everyone, especially
Absolutely.
women.
Yeah.
I feel like all we do is achieve. So it only
I
makes
think we
sense to
have
call
to.
it.
I think it's in us that we have to achieve, and we have to show something that we have achieved. You know, I really do think that. I knew from a young girl that I wanted to be a school teacher. I played school in my garage, and I would bring in the children from the neighborhood, and I would teach school. I knew then. We had a lady that had a little daycare next door to us, and I would go over there, and of course I was watching the kids. She was probably loving it, but I was doing school. I was,
So
having
you
fun.
knew early
Oh, I
on
knew
what you
early
wanted
on.
to do.
It was my first grade teacher, Miss Snyder. I'll never forget that. I mean, she was such a wonderful teacher, and I just looked up to her. She was like 6 feet tall, and of course, you're a little kindergarten, first grade little girl, and you're looking up to her. I will never ever forget. And I said, I want to be her. I remember it. I remember it as clear as day. Now, getting to that journey was a little longer, but other than that, yes.
Well, let's talk about that journey, Becky, because we know you as a philanthropist, a community leader, a female community leader at that, who is larger than life here in Tupelo, Mississippi. But I don't know if many people know your story. So let's start at the beginning. Where were you born, and what was that journey like?
Okay, we're
Well,
going way back.
Well, a little bit. I think that's important to
Yeah.
some aspect of
Yeah.
kind of your root beginnings, and then you've already touched on what your experience or when you had the enlightenment
Right.
of knowing what you wanted,
wanted to be
what
very
you want
young.
to do, very young.
I was born in Cuero, Texas. It's a very small town outside between Corpus Christi and Victoria. And I was born there because my grandparents lived there. My parents lived in Port Lavaca, Texas, and Hurricane Carla had just blown through and blew their house away. It went away, I mean, with the hurricane. And she had me staying with her parents while my dad was trying to get a house again and build back their life and everything else. So I was born there, and they moved us back, and I moved into the brand new house that they had that they still lived in until I moved my mother to Tupelo. So many, many years, so we lived there and grew up there, went to school there, and yeah, it was wonderful. And I graduated and wanted to go to college, and I did go to college at the University of Houston in Victoria, just not too far. But then I also went to another school, but I was only there for like a month. I was at college in San Marcos, Texas, and I was there probably a month. And my roommate goes, "Your dad's here," and I went, "Oh, okay." So I walked out, and my dad said, "You have to come home." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Your sister's ill. Your mother's going to have to go stay with her at the hospital." She had 2 children. She had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And she goes, "You're going to take care of the children." And so I had to pack all my stuff up and leave college with all my friends. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I like to have a good time. So partying, left behind, came home and started watching my sister's children, Joel, that was 4, and Melissa, that was 2. And so I became the caregiver as my mother stayed with my sister in Houston. She had melanoma, cancer. And my brother was off at college, and my dad was working. And so kind of that's the family dynamic. I didn't know how to cook. I still don't know how to cook. I mean, that's just for show in there. But I mean, I tried to cook. I mean, it was a crazy time. Long story short, she passed. And then my dad said, "Well, you can go back to school." And I go, "Well, my friends have already moved on. What do you want?" I mean, how did, I was 8, I was 19, maybe 20. I was young. And I was like, no. So he said, "Well, you can get a job at the bank up there. You can get a job. I've already talked to Mr. Patterson. Victor Patterson, go see him and he'll give you a job." Okay. So I went to the bank. I got a job. And if you don't think God is in your life in some way or another, guess who comes to town? Dan Rollins, brand new, just graduated from the University of Texas. I get called into the president's office, and he goes, "I need you to show this young man around." And I go, "No, sir, I don't want to do that." And he goes, "No, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you this young man is moving to town. You need to show him around." And I said, okay, so in comes Dan. Don't even get me started. He was a lot. And so I took him. We lived in a very small town, so it was an L. So we got from the bank, we went down, past the Sonic, past the Pizza Hut, past the movie theater, past Walmart, and came back up. I don't even think we had a Walmart then. I think it was Wieners. I don't even think it was a Walmart. And I said, that's it. Nice to meet you. Goodbye. Got out, da-da-da. Well, long story short, you know how that happened. 36 years later, here we are sitting. But yeah, I mean, so I didn't go back to school until I married Dan. So it's very interesting. I was going to night school in Victoria at the University of Houston. I was going to night school, but I didn't get my degree until I married Dan. And then I started teaching. And so that's where I started out.
Becky, that is so interesting. That is not something I knew about you, but it completely explains your character and who you are down to the core. Can you provide some insight, if you're comfortable, about why probably at the time you did not want to go back and help your family? You did? And what was the pull and the importance of that?
I look at myself now and go, really was a little much, Becky, because I don't know, I was so young and I was just starting out in my life, and I knew this was it. Getting away from the small town that I lived in, moving to a college town. Oh boy, here we go. This is going to be the start. And then when it all comes to a screeching halt, I was very angry for a while. Like, how dare she do this to me? How dare, But as I sit here with you today, I look back at that, and I will tell you, God does things for a reason. My sister did pass. I'm very sorry for that, and I miss her every day. And still today, I'll be in a crowd, and I think I see her, and I'm just like, oh, I'm going to cry. And but I don't think my life would have turned out the way it did, and I would not have ended up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if I would not have gone down that road. Yeah. And it's I look back and I go, wow, I could write a book about this life that I've had, because it has been an amazing journey. And Dan and I are a great team. We have 2 great kids, and the things that we have gotten to experience in our lifetime, and it has been amazing. From Port Lavaca, we moved to Bay City, Texas. That's where I became an administrator. I went back at night and I had 2 little kids, and my kids, it's so funny because it's, it all parallels. My 2 little kids were 2 and 4. So I go back to school, I get my master's degree, I get a administration. I left teaching and went into administration. I was the director of federal programs, and I was in charge of all of that, and I loved it. And then from there, I was that for 11 years, administrator. And in that 11 years administrator, I did pre-K 1 principal. I was JD's assistant principal, was in 5th grade. He still hates it to this today. And then I was at a middle school. Not long, because we moved. And we moved to Houston in Texas. And so when I was at Houston, I said, I'm going back to the classroom because I miss the kids. So I went back and I got a job in Houston, Texas at a great school, Bunker Hill Elementary. And I was a 5th grade teacher. And I was teaching math and science. And I swear to you, I went home in the evening, and my 7th grade son would have to teach me how to do the math, because I didn't know how to, I didn't know how, that's not how I learned how to do math. And so, yeah, I became friends with the principal very quickly and just wanted to do science so we could blow stuff up and have fun. So that's what I did. My last 11 years before I moved to Tupelo, I was a science teacher, and I can tell you to this day, we had a great time.
I love fun science teachers.
I had the best.
I think they make the world go round, and I think they get the kids excited about learning.
And you know what? I have to tell you this. I'm going to tell you, 2 months ago, I had a student that Facebook messaged me and said, I don't know what she's out of the blue. She says, I just wanted to tell you that you changed my life. I told Dan, I said, that's it. I've made my goal in life. If one student that I taught in the 5th grade can say, you changed my life and you set me on this journey that I am, and I'll say, well, my job is done. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, when you go into teaching, at least from what I have observed, that's usually not the goal for teachers. You guys want to pour into children, and you want to upbring them, and you want to leave them with something. Yeah. And so that's really a privilege and an honor to have a past student come back and say,
Yeah.
hey, you really impacted my life in many
right.
more ways than you even realized.
I noticed today was National Teachers Appreciation Day.
It is.
And I always say every day should be National Appreciation for teachers, because the things that they do is beyond. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to adopt half the kids when we first married, and Dan kept going, nope, you can't do that. And I would like come home and I go, there's this little girl. And he goes, no. And I was like, okay, just thought I'd ask,
Yeah.
I just was, and I taught in a very, very affluent school in Houston. I mean, it was a great school. I mean, teacher didn't ask for anything. I mean, it was given to you. I mean, I came from a very poor school district in Bay City to a very rich school district in Houston. And I still brought snacks to school. And those kids can afford their snacks. But it was just ingrained in me that the snacks are back there. Nobody had to ask. You got a snack if you wanted a snack. If you didn't want a snack, you didn't have to. I mean, it was just something I think in me that just to make sure every child had something. I provided pencils. I mean, I would buy everything. And Dan goes, yeah, your school would buy that, Becky. And I go, no, it's like I have to do it. It's for me to give back.
So talk to me about your transition from leaving the school district behind and moving to Tupelo. Like, what's next?
Yeah, what's next? Yeah. For a while, I was still doing FaceTime with the students at school. The librarian and I had done a breakfast book club, and I was still doing book club with the kids once I had left when I got here to Tupelo. But that lasted, because I had left in January, so I left my kids for that last few months, and I just couldn't let go, so I was still doing that. But yeah, when I got here, that was the question. What are you going to do? What's going to happen? Because listen, I really did lie to Dan and said, well, you can teach. And I said, yeah, but my certificate is only in Texas and it doesn't transfer to Mississippi. And he goes, I don't think that's right. I go, yes, it is. So yeah, we lied and just made that up. So I thought to myself, now I got to find something to do. And it's funny you say, because Catherine Mize asked me to lunch, very sweet of her. We went to lunch and she said, so what are you passionate about? And I really had to stop and think at that point because, being a teacher, that consumes you. So I was consumed with education. And I didn't say, but I was also speaking too. I would go out and speak to schools as well, or whoever would have me come speak to them. But I would do that as well. And so I was thinking, well, I can't do that here. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I told her, I said, well, I love reading and I love the library. And that's where that kind of stemmed. Then she introduced me to Babe Gratz. Babe introduced me to Jeff, and the rest is history. So, we made that connection because he had only been here a year, and then I had only been here 6 months. So we kind of just meshed together, and I opened my big mouth and said, well, how do you raise money for this library? And he goes, they don't. And he goes, we have a book sales, and we have that. And I said, you need an event. You need to have people come. You need to talk about the library. And so that's how that happened. So I really did get involved in that. And then that stemmed, I got on Create Board. Then I'm on a hospital board, the IRB board. And then I got in Boys and Girls Club. And then I got into AEE. And then my husband would tell people, it used to be, this is Dan Rollins' wife. And then he says, now this is Becky Rollins, her husband's Dan. So yeah, it became, So I got really involved in everything educational that I could get involved in. So I never left the educational part.
Well, you really just took a different approach to still being connected to children.
I did.
Because I can really tell you light up when you talk about them,
my God.
and it's really exciting to you, and I could see where you could miss that, but you were still being impactful in just a very different way.
Yeah.
And you saw some gaps in our community when you came here, and you were like, okay, this is some of my strengths, my interests. I love doing some of these things. Let me just jump in and see if it happens.
And then I pull you in and then get you involved too. So see how that all works.
It does.
And you had just started also the big thing at the what do we call it?
Imagine the Possibilities Career Expo.
Blew my mind. Of course, being the science teacher, blew my mind for kids to have that opportunity. Yeah. And you did that. I was taken back on that. So
we're definitely fortunate, and how amazing is it to have been a part of that? I think
amazing.
It's something that is so unique to our area, but I don't think a lot of people realize how special that is, and the the investment obviously by Toyota when they came here, and to have that continue on.
But I
in
haven't
such
seen
an
that.
impactful
And I lived
way.
in Houston, Texas, and I've never seen something done like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I told everybody about it because it was amazing.
You
It
were
was
a
amazing.
huge ambassador, and you still are for all things education and what Create does. But that
Yeah.
was really an amazing event.
I was a huge ambassador. I pushed the water bucket
You
around,
did.
offering water. I was really,
You sure did.
I was really good at that job.
You,
Yeah,
you owned it and you loved it, and that's what I love about
I did,
you.
and I
in
love
that
seeing
way,
those,
too.
and I love watching the students' face.
Yes.
That is what really grabbed me and said, "This is something that is amazing, and what an opportunity for students to have."
Well, we
That
always
thing.
said hands on, minds on.
Yeah.
Because how often can you read about it or watch a video, and our children are consumed with technology this and age. So when you actually get in front of those career professionals and actually get to touch it, see it, smell it, hear it, be
my God.
there.
That
you
that was
can't.
my philosophy teaching
Yeah.
science, because I only where we touched it, where we did it, where they got to make it, where they got to actually do it. And you know what? Hands on, minds on. That is the key,
It really
because
is.
kids are invested. Because when they get to put their hands on it and then their minds turns on it, you make a whole different possibilities that you can imagine. Like I did that with that.
Exactly. So fabulous. Let's rewind briefly. You skirted around this, but let's dive a little deeper, because this is something I'm curious about. So when you were speaking, talk to us about how you got into speaking and what led you to take steps into that direction, and what all did you do with that?
I don't know why I wanted to do that. I will tell you, in Houston, our fifth graders, we did a fish camp. And we called it that because we modeled it after the Seattle fish market thing. And there's a whole great thing with that. And I do still do that. But it just, I was like, somebody came up to me and said, would you come and do that with our school? Would you show them how to do that? And would you come talk to teachers and do that? So that's kind of how it started. And I had scaled back from teaching. I know this sounds crazy, but I was teaching Tuesday, Thursday, every other Friday. And I was speaking on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I was having a full schedule, but I was still doing that. So I would go around to all school districts, and went back to my old in Bay City. I did a whole thing for teachers there, and I did it all around Houston, and it was fun. But I don't know why I did it. It just became something I wanted to do, and I liked talking. So yeah.
It was a perfect fit.
It was a perfect fit.
What did you talk about? What was your subject? Was it the fish camp only, or did you talk about other things?
I really talked about teachers and your attitude towards students, and being engaged with students. And sometimes we have teachers that are not in the right place to be with students. And when I say that, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying you have to have a passion for teaching if you're going to teach, because you are molding lives, and you can say something to a kid and can really damage somebody if somebody is not engaged in what they're doing. I was so taken back with teachers that would get there. The school bell rang at 8, they got there at 7:57. The school bell was over at 3, they were out at 3:05. I never understood that. I think you have to be engaged in education. So that's what I did. I went around and talked about being engaged in education. Don't sit at your desk, get up, walk around, see what's going on. You got to do something. You can't just sit there. And I always wanted people just to be involved. Get involved, because those kids need you. And coming from a school district in Bay City, well, Port Lavaca, Bay City, lower social economic, when I was federal programs director, we had a lot of low income students. And I remember one time I went with a social worker, being the federal programs director. I went with a social worker to look at some students that weren't coming to school. I came in my suit, because I was an administrator and I wear a suit. I came in my suit, and she goes, yeah, you can't wear that. And I go, what? And she goes, no, you can't walk into somebody's home for them to feel different. And so I went home. I put on a white shirt and a khaki pants and came back, and she goes, yeah, well, okay, that's not really, but okay.
That's a little better.
I was thinking, oh, okay, well, I think this is good. But that humbled me in a way that I will never, ever forget. And I remember the student said to me, I did not want you to come see the way I was living. And I said, well, we are going to change the way that you're living. I mean, it really humbled me as a teacher. And that's when I said, we got to be careful, because those kids know and they feel, and we have to be very gentle with these type of kids, or any kid. You don't know, in this day and age, you don't know what people are going through. And that one word, or that smile, or that hug, or that snack can totally change a kid. It really can. So yeah, so I wanted to go out and tell them how to be a better teacher. I just, that was my passion. Teaching was my passion since Miss Snyder in first grade at Roosevelt Elementary. I just remember her, and she was so kind to me. And I just wanted to be that. I just want to emulate what she did to me, to other people. And so then I just wanted to go around and talk about it. Just be a better teacher.
I love it. So just listening to you share about the impact that teachers have, whether it's positive or negative, I actually could recall some of my positive and negative experiences. And you're right. It's the one gesture or the one moment.
And you won't forget it.
I won't forget it. And the thing is, brains develop until you're the age 25. So you're most impressionable when you are an adolescent and a child in general. And so everything is so confusing and crazy, and especially when you start getting like in the preteen age, I feel like, because you know what's going on, but you don't know how to make decisions wisely, and you're so impacted and influenced by those around you.
Right.
And teachers are a huge part of that.
Yeah.
And I loved a lot of my teachers too, and that's been a positive experience, because they are also delight for the children that don't have that at home.
Yeah.
And I think what our society has done to teachers is a little bit unfair, because they can't fix all of our problems, but they do have a huge piece of that. And so thank you for sharing that. And so I totally see how that's a connection. And really, you wanted to help other teachers.
I did. I'm not trying to say I'm a better teacher, because I had to learn. And I had my student teacher, Nancy Diebel, and it was so funny. When my mother passed and we were back in my hometown, she came to the funeral and she told my 2 grown children, she goes, I taught her everything she knows. She is who she is because of me. And my daughter's like going, okay, you're why we had to endure all that. But she told me what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And Nancy Diebel is, she's one that I will never forget. And she guided me and said, this is how you need to be a teacher. And I think sometimes we're lacking that in our institutions, that we teach teachers how to teach. We're all about this other. Those kids, they need to be in the classroom seeing how it is. Because I can guarantee you, a first-year teacher going into a classroom, it is wide-eyed, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? So yeah, and that's why we have a teacher shortage, because a lot of teachers leave because they don't feel they're supported, or they don't feel they have that connection that they need to have that helps them, encourages them, and does stuff like that. Maybe that'll be my new role, going to help new teachers.
Fabulous idea.
I know. No, I don't have time.
So since I've known you, you have had the opportunity to do some really cool things through fundraisers and interviews.
Oh, my God, yes.
Steve Harvey was one of those.
That was so wild. I will never forget that.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about that, because I have heard the stories, and I just think it's fabulous and just so interesting and
Well,
cool.
It's a great story. First of all, I was in a meeting with Julie Gibbons and the Health Foundation, and they're talking, and my husband and Mitch Waycaster from Renaissance, they were going to be the MCs. And so I just assumed, and I thought Judd Wilson was doing the interview. I mean, I was just sitting there and we were saying what we're going to do. And then finally, Julie goes, we think you should do the interview. I went, excuse me? No. And she goes, no, we think you'll be engaging and he'll enjoy that. And I said, oh, y'all, I don't know. And they said, yeah. I said, But of course, they only gave me like 2 to 3 days before it was going to happen. Well, I feel like it was probably a month, but anyway, it felt like 2 or 3 days. They said, "Oh, he's going to come. He's going to go through the health works. You can just come and meet him there." And I remember him getting off the bus. He had his sunglasses on, and he was like, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is really Steve Harvey." And it was amazing. And he was very nice, and he interacted with the kids. He was great. And so I said, "Well, I'll see you in a few hours." And he said, "Okay." And so went to the thing, and we get there, and I'm told that he's not going to do the interview. And I went, "Oh, okay, perfect. Good for me." So I'm off the hook. And then we were in line taking pictures with him, and he goes, "Oh, you're doing that interview with me?" And I said, "Yeah," but I said, "You're not doing it." He goes, "No, I've changed my mind. I'm going to do it now." I'm like, okay. But yeah. So anyway, it was fun, and he's great. I'm going to talk about a public speaker. I mean, his story. He's got a great story, and he did a really good job. And then I did ask him about the Miss Universe thing, and he goes, "Oh," I said, "The people wanted to know." And he goes, "The people want to know, or you want to know?" And I went, "Well, maybe I want to know." And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I thought." It was just, he was very sweet. And he was very kind. And after we got off stage, he told me that I was very funny and that I could come and do Family Feud anytime. So I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited," but we never did it. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see you do Family Feud. I think that would be so much
Oh
fun.
yeah. I'm a little competitive. Yeah,
I
so
think
that
it would be really, really good.
And I have a competitive daughter, so we would be, yeah, it would be interesting.
It would be good. Any other stories or experiences come to mind right now that are similar in nature?
You know, we're 10 years here in Tupelo. How long have you been in Tupelo?
16.
Okay, so you got a few on me. I just have to say, it's just a very giving town. And it's very, I don't know, I have enjoyed and loved my time here, that I will go, if I ever have to go and move away or whatever I have to do with my life, it's just been so much fun. And the things that I've gotten to do, Steve Harvey, all kinds of, I spoke about my breast cancer on a video for the hospital. I mean, I just, if I could help one person in anything that I've done or anything that I've done in this town, I'm happy with that. And everybody's just been so kind to me and welcoming. And Dan and I cannot say enough about Tupelo. It's been a great home for us.
As I think about your time here, there have been a lot of personal and very close things that also have happened to you. You just mentioned one.
Yep.
Is getting sick.
Right.
And then also your mom.
Yep.
And that entire transition and how that came to be and with her passing. I could see where maybe we hold a special place in your heart through that too. Is there anything you'd like to share on either of those instances?
And I did a commercial for Generations too, because that's where I moved my mother. And I was so scared of moving my mother. She had dementia. So it just depends if she knew me or she didn't know me. And so when I moved her here, I was so frightened. And when I moved her to Generations, and let me tell you what, that lady came alive. I have never seen her happier. And the friends that she made there and the connections that I made there, that was probably the best decision I've made in a really long time. That was hard because you don't know what you're doing when you're moving your mother from her family home and selling her family home and moving everything here with me, which I needed to do. I do have a brother, but he couldn't have taken care of her. And that made a special bond that I will never forget. There are some people there and they know who they are and that I will love forever because what they did for my mother. And that was just that bond. And then she fell and we had to move her to a more skilled nursing, and those people there again made friends there that I will never forget as well. And the hospital that took care of her when she was here. I mean, it does hold a special place. So that is, yes, I'll never forget that.
How was being sick at the time that you were sick impacted your drive and your self in general, and you being a part of the community?
Well, that's funny you say that about drive, because I would go to radiation. I had to do it for a good 6 weeks every day. So that takes a lot out of you. I know the radiation doesn't affect you, but that when I went through that, I would go every morning, and those people, cannot say enough about those people. I made friends there too, and I just went back recently and said hello to all of them again, because I do appreciate what they did for me. But after I would do radiation, I would drive to Fulton every day after radiation to see my mother. And that was all the month of November. My mother died. She waited till I finished radiation. And again, I'm going to bring it back to a God thing. And if you don't think that doesn't work in your favor or your circle, it is. Because she waited 1 week after I finished radiation, and she passed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, thank you, Mother, for letting me get through that so I can tackle this now. So, that year was a pretty hard year for me, but I made it through. Sister died of cancer. So in my head, telling my daughter that I had breast cancer, probably the hardest thing I ever did. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I came out on the other end, and I'm thankful for everybody in this community. I've spoken about Dr. Sanders. I've spoken about Dr. Reed. I cannot thank them enough for what all they did for me in the Tupelo hospital. I mean, it was a great experience. You didn't think somebody would say that, but the journey that I took through that, it made me a much stronger person. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
Well, you have had the highs and the lows while you've been with us over a
10
decade.
years.
And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I truly believe that in order for us to be the best version of ourselves, we have to experience the good and the bad. Yeah. You're not going to build character by just having la-di-da, blasé, wonderful rainbows and butterflies experiences.
Everybody in one time or another is going to get knocked down. Mm-hmm. It might not be with cancer. It might not be with something else, but everybody's going to get knocked down. And what you have to tell yourself is, get back up and go forward. Because I don't think God's going to give me enough that I'm going to quit. It's a lesson. The lesson is learned. Move forward. And the lesson that I learned from that, I got to slow down. Because we as women don't look after ourselves. We go, we do for others, and we don't take care of ourselves. That was somebody in my face going, stop, slow down, and just take care of yourself. And you're right, that was a lot on me. My mother was sick. She was going quickly and slowly, and it was tough because she was not my mother, and that was hard on me. I was going through all that. But it's a lesson learned, and you go forward, and now, I feel good about myself, and I'm taking time for myself, which is a lesson for everybody, Albine. Take the time. Stop and smell the roses. Stop and appreciate what's around you. It really is important.
Very well said. So you have had to move around a good bit, and so you have had to sort of rebuild relationships and do networking everywhere you've been. So how has that been important to you, or how has networking and building relationships, how did they play in your involvement and who you are, and then also your community involvement?
Well, you just nailed it right there. It's relationships. It's the relationships you make. I can go back to Houston, Texas, and my relationships with my teacher friends there. We still have that bond. We still get together. You making the contacts that you make are lifelong. I have two great friends in Bay City, Texas, that we still communicate. We're still on a text thread. Also teachers. I have my Houston girls on a text thread, always talking, always keeping in touch. And then now I have my friends here that the contacts you make and the people that you surround yourself with are what's going to make you. And I think that's what everybody needs to know. You need to have those contacts. You need to have those connections because you need that in your life, but you also need to learn and grow. So coming here, I've learned so much about Mississippi and all the good things about that, and I love it. And the people that I've met here are amazing, amazing. And I'll just go back to say, if you fall, you get back up. You might be hurt, but you get back up and you continue. I also think it's very important to give back to your community in some form or fashion. You're volunteering. You know, Dan is CEO of Cadence. I'm the CVO. You know what that is? The Chairman Volunteer Officer. That's my CVO. I'm CVO, Dan's CEO, and it's like, he goes, you're crazy. But I feel like I volunteer. I feel like I have given to this community the best of myself. And I think that's what's important to anybody in any community. Get out there and volunteer and find something that you're passionate about and dive right in. Just like me and my big mouth. So, you know, I always tell everybody I'm a big girl living in a big world with a big mouth. So that's me. All wrapped up in a nice, beautiful bow. That is me.
When you came here, you really transitioned a little bit with where you wanted to
Right.
spend and give your time to, and what a perfect place it was for you to land, because we're really known for that, but then you really gave your best self to the community.
I tried to give my best self, but I also knew this was something my husband asked me to do when he came in and said, and he came in and I was teaching, and our kids were really gone. Kristen had just left to go to college, so she was gone. We were in a transition of just he and I, and where are we going to go, and what are we going to do? And he came home and said, they're looking at asking me to come to Tupelo, Mississippi. And I go, excuse me, where is that? And he goes, well, you remember when we went to Oxford for Kristen to look at Ole Miss? And I said, oh, I love that town. That was so cute. And he goes, well, it's just right up the road. And I go, really? And he goes, yes. And I said, he goes, are you in or are you out? Because, you know, we were a partner. We've been a partner since he showed up at the bank thinking he was all that in a bag of chips. But yeah, I said, let's do it. Let's go. Let's, you know, and listen, we left a lot. I left my 2 kids in Texas. I left my mother and my brother. He left his parents. He has siblings. We left everything in Texas and moved here. And when we came, we said, we're going to give it our all. Because I thought, if he is going to be the CEO of the bank, we need to be in this town. We need to give it what we can give. And I have tried to do my best. And that's why, you know, and we've traveled the world. Well, not the world, but I feel like the world. We have traveled all over supporting the bank and meeting people and doing things. And we both believe that's important. We both believe that you need to be out there with the people that are doing the work. And I have gone to many, many things with him, and I have loved making the friends all over the state of Mississippi and other states as well with all that. And listen, that has been a challenge. And now we've transitioned now to even bigger. So we're trying to visit all those places, and I feel like I go with him and I meet these people, and I think it's what we should do. And I support him, and he supports me, and we make it work.
Becky, I love that you mentioned that, because partnership is so crucial.
Yep.
My husband and I also have a mantra. We share our lives.
Right.
We don't impress ourselves on each other's lives, and we're each other's support system. And that's what I hear you say.
Yeah.
And so many so many couples don't function that way.
Right.
I think there's this mentality sometimes that if I give, that's taken away, and it's really a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
When in reality, you're sharing your lives together, so you are going to support your partner
Right.
in whatever capacity that looks like. And you know, for me, I'm like you. I feel like my husband he knew what he was signing up for when he
Mine
married me.
too.
And so we're everywhere we go, but that man has never once said you can't do something.
Yeah.
In fact, he's the one in my corner constantly saying,
He's your
why are
cheerleader.
you not doing that?
He has his pom-poms
You need
behind
to do
you.
this. That's right. Especially like even with this podcast.
Yeah.
It has been imprinted on me for a while now. And when I uttered the words, it's like I probably should have thought about him a little bit more, because he went above and beyond just saying you need to do this. He instantly said, I'm going to help you do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out. You're not going to, those challenges that you're worried about, you just need to do it. And I think for our listeners who are listening, what encouragement would you give to someone who maybe doesn't have that?
Well, I would say any relationship, it's a give and it's a take. But you're right, it has to be a partnership. And let me tell you, I sometimes want to say no, and I know he wants to tell me no all the time. But really, we look at it, we talk about it, and then we decide. And that is the important part. It's a give and take. As I tell my grown children, it's a two-way street. So it's not a one way, it's two ways. So you have to get on the street and you have to respect everybody on the street. So it is hard sometimes, but I think, as you said, my husband knew what he was getting when he got me, and I'm a lot, and I probably talk too much, as you probably know now. But I just think the support, it's got to be two ways. I support him. He supports me. I tell him no. He tells me no. I go on and do it anyway. But that is how it works. That's how it works in this house.
Yeah. I love it. But I think, I love everything you just said, because that gets lost in translation sometimes, and that's a choice that you make. And it's so critical to have that in any relationship, really.
I'm going to add to that.
Yeah, let's add to that.
Because I want to say, my advice I have a daughter that's getting married soon, and my advice to her is, you got to be curious, don't settle, learn as much as you can every day, build as many relationships as possible, and no one does it alone. No one does it alone. There are people out there that do it alone, but I bet back in the corner or back on the side, there's somebody supporting a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle, a friend,
A teacher.
a teacher. Nobody goes this road alone. So find somebody that you can go down the road with that is your biggest supporter and your biggest cheerleader.
What advice would you give to a woman who is maybe thinking about pivoting and doing something differently, but just hasn't taken the action steps to do that?
I would review your goals and what you're trying to do with your life. Kind of like you wanted to start a podcast, something different. So I would review your goals and your progress. I would set your goals, find a mentor. Key, find a mentor. Listen, always listen, because I'm the one that usually just jumps off, and sometimes the person behind me went go, no, wait 5 minutes, and I've already jumped. So listen, don't be like me, listen, and make those connections. And that's key. But yeah, just go. I always say go with your gut.
Yes.
I always say that because it's there. That little, I always say my dad is right behind me going, you can do it. Keep going. He was my biggest cheerleader. I know this is going to shock you, but I was a big basketball player. And my dad came to every game. And if I didn't do well at a game, he would always encourage me, his next game. And if I did really well, he would always tell me something that I could have improved on. So, I always try to, take what you have, learn from it, look at it, move forward, and keep going.
Who are some of those mentors and people that have made an impression on
my
you
life,
throughout your life?
my dad he was the biggest supporter in anything I did. And I was a lot. I played all the sports, and he was there for every one of them. And I guess, Nancy Diebel, I have to go to her. She was my mentor when I was starting teaching. And I have another friend parenting with Sherry Barton. She had older kids, and she had a son that was the same age as Kristen. And whatever she told me to do, I did it, just because I didn't know, and I wanted to be a good parent. I wanted to raise two well-rounded children, which I think I did. I look at them today and I go, okay, maybe Dan and I did okay on you too. But yeah, those people were a big supporters. Um, Moving here, Margaret Gratz was a great supporter of mine, and Jane Riley, you know, she she immediately when I got here, she took me to lunch as well, and she told me, how things are and everything, and I love her. This town really embraced me, and the people at the bank, lovely people. Everybody kind of just took us in, and you know put up with our crazy, and it's been a great ride. I can look back. You make me emotional because I'm sitting here looking back and thinking, wow, I've had a pretty good life if you think about it. I mean, from a small town girl that grew up in a small town that, well, all she was trying to do is get out. I got out, and I did okay. So yeah, and I married the boy that I thought I would never marry, and yeah, we did okay together. So yeah.
So, what are some of your future goals or projects, and are you doing anything to achieve them? You've mentioned the book earlier, and I definitely think you should do a
Oh
book.
yeah. I'm gonna work on that book. I really do. I really think I should.
You really should. I think that's very
I was
possible.
going to name it Big Girl in Big World, but
Love it.
I'm going to tell you, I'm fingers crossed, knock on wood. My next goal is grandchildren. If those kids could just produce me a grandchild. I have 3 grand dogs, love them all to death, but Big Daddy and Coco need a little grandkid is what we'd like. That's my next project. No, I'm just but no, I don't know what we're going to do next. I've stepped back from quite a few things after the cancer, and to take care of myself, and get my mother's affairs all situated, and I've done that. I don't know where I'll go next. I don't know.
It sounds like you're transitioning.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't
and
it?
really trying to it sounds like you're trying to prepare for the next chapter, which is the grandchildren.
I do think it's going to be
and all the
grandchildren.
things that brings
would entail. I know.
That's right.
Yeah, and adding to our family, we just added a beautiful daughter-in-law, Caitlin, and she married our son. We're inviting Matt to join us, and so our family we've become a really great unit, and we like traveling together.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Fabulous.
And we still do trips together, and they still like us. So yeah, I think we've made good strides in our life so far.
So now that I've kind of forced you to reflect back on your life and tell
Yeah.
your story, if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, is there anything that you would tell yourself?
Sometimes you're going to fall down. Sometimes it will hurt. But you just get back up and keep going. I've fallen. I've fallen several times. And I just kept telling myself, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And that's what I would tell my younger self, because I just, I look back and I had a great childhood. I just always knew I wanted more. And so I have to say, I pretty much got everything I wanted. So I'm happy.
That's great. Anything else you'd like to add? We're at the end of our conversation. So this is an opportunity to,
Well, thank you. I've always been a big supporter of you, and you know what I think of you. And I think what you're doing and what you do for this community is amazing.
oh,
And
you're
your
sweet.
16 years here puts a lot of people to shame. But we do appreciate what you're doing and like doing this and trying to help others. I think that's what we as women need to do. We need to lift people up. We need to show people that it's okay when you don't do it right or something doesn't go your way. There's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. So, you got to go through the tunnel. And I have been through the tunnel a couple of times, maybe more than I share to go through the tunnel. But I have come out on the other side. I have great friends like you. I have a great community that I love and support. I have a great family. I just don't have those grandchildren. So I just don't, that would make my full circle, I think.
I think it's coming. So,
Albin, I'm so excited that you think so.
I think it is. Well, Becky, it has been a privilege and an honor
Oh.
to call you friend. I am so thankful for your constant support, and I definitely thank you for being on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
It was fun. I hope I did you proud.
You did. Thank
Well,
you.
Good. Thank you.